Why we're running it for one last glorious hurrah to Aston Martin's era of VH-based cars with big normally aspirated V12s month 1, month 2, month 3, month 4, month 5 specs life with the Vanquish S month 5 getting loud and raw T with the Aston. The 25th of October 2017 Aston's DB11 has a quiet mode when you start it. Give the start button a prolonged push and it doesn't wake the neighbors. This Vanquish just makes a massive noise. Apparently, many modern engines want a start-up blip to help the catalyst into life, but they don't need the exhaust flaps open. It wouldn't hurt if these ones stayed closed occasionally. Mileage 7,830 vanishing into the Highlands sunset the 27th of September 2017 when somebody far too good for you walks into your life and then, upon realizing they're far too good for you, walks straight out of it again, leaving you heartbroken. There is grieving. On a not unrelated note, soon this Aston Martin Vanquish S will be leaving Autocar Towers to return to its maker. The Vanquish exudes a kind of passenger feeling, doesn't it? I know, it'll stay on sale until 2019, but what with it being the last of the naturally aspirated V12s, and what with it being the last Aston that will die with a V8 architecture beneath it, it will be, when it goes, the close of a relatively happy, and particularly significant, chapter in Aston Martin's history. Now out of time with this car. Which is, officially, a shame. Staggeringly good or old school kit. pic.twitter.com Nies1xWJ4E, Matt Pryor at Matty_Pryor August 29, 2017 How, then, do you prepare to bid farewell to one of the world's finest GT cars? I wondered. Should I weep, deny, bargain, send it a mixtape of meaningful songs, write a poem, like Lewis Hamilton on Princess Di? Vanquish. You were the world's best 22, it was funny the way CEO Ulrich Bez used to pronounce you. Your blue and white paint, like Italian pottery, is a la mode. You'd win first in a concours at the Goodwood Festival of Spode, if there was one. No. I think you go for a long drive and enjoy it while it lasts. So I did, to Scotland, because it's big and beautiful and the roads are fabulous and quiet and people don't mind when you overtake them, and because I had a few days to spare, and the weather looked iffy enough to leave the motorbike at home. A super GT car like the Vanquish ought to be in its element on a drive like this, north, via Edinburgh, with no particular destination other than West Coast, perhaps in mind. And so it was. With a 78-litre fuel tank, it has a realistic range of more than 400 miles because this is, remarkably, one of those cars in which it's possible to not just match but also easily beat the official 21.6 mpg combined fuel economy. I suspect Aston doesn't spend quite as much time as other car makers trying to optimize its cars for a lab test. #week off Scotland Aston solo road trip bloody hell wish you were here etc etc pic.twitter.com 7way for luck see, Matt Pryor at Matty_Pryor August 22, 2017 Quite right too. Instead, the Vanquish has a broad, easy spread of power, all the way through the range, and it is made superb use of by the 8 ratios of its ZF automatic gearbox, which is mounted at the rear axle to give the Vanquish a better weight distribution, what with its 5.9-litre V12 sitting at the front, weighing that end down. The ratios are spot on, close enough for each upshift to put the Vanquish back in the heart of noise-making and torque-making territory, far enough apart that 8th sees you barely pass tick over at the legal limit. At the start of this year, when the Vanquish S was revised, one of the changes was to fit a stiffer coupling between propshaft and engine, to make gearshifts feel quicker and more positive. There's no sense, then, and the same's true of most modern autos, to be fair, that there's any slushing going on. Gearshifts are crisp and, although the V12 is a generously revvy engine, it's quite quick enough at around 30,004,000 revolutions per minute, seemingly at the point the exhaust valves open, which brings sound and drama to a driving experience that's engaging at all speeds. The sound is probably reverberating around the grand black walls of several glens even now. Normally, that would be a problem. Flash, noisy cars are usually antisocial cars. But an Aston Martin, somehow, is not. Often a fast car will make somebody tell you they hate you. An Aston Martin gets people telling you they love the car if not you. Perhaps it's because it's British. Perhaps it's because it's beautiful. Perhaps it's because it's relatively understated compared with some supercars and Superg. Either way, there are few better places to contemplate a sunset. Mileage 7,150 imperfections in the Vanquish SS Armour the 13th of September 2017. It would be easy to sit here and spew out another 600 words covering all the great things there are about an Aston Martin Vanquish S. Lord knows, I've already done that. So let's try something harder. What, exactly, is wrong with this car? Not broken wrong, you understand, because there's none of that. We're about to accrue the kind of mileage, in less than 3 months, that an owner will likely take a year or two to amass, but there's nothing wrong with the Vanquish S in that sense. I sometimes notice a squeak from, I assume, a rear wheel bearing, but then it goes away. Ditto a little squeak from one of the door mirrors as it folds in after I've locked the car. Other than those trifles, nothing has gone wrong, broken, or fallen off. Nor should it have. You might argue this is a £200,000 motor. But it's also one largely hand-built in small volumes. Niggles would be less surprising in an Aston than, say, a Toyota. But there is nothing. Its 5.9-litre, naturally aspirated V12 engine hasn't even used so much as a drop of oil. No, when I say wrong, I mean what are its faults, because no matter how exciting a car is, every vehicle must have them, right. So, door handles, these are a bit of a nuisance. You have to push the front of them to get the back of them to emerge, which is hardly a paragon of ergonomic refinement. But, then, it means they sit flush with the body. And they have little lights in them for seeing them at night. So, forgiven. Inside there's that steering wheel. Gulp, there's that square steering wheel. My 14-year-old actually laughed when he first saw it. But you can have a round one and save £995, so I would. In fact, you could probably persuade Aston into covering a round one with Alcantara. It'd do that. That said, the airbag section does look a bit big by today's standards, and those buttons and switches are right out of somebody's parts bin from a decade and a half ago. But nestling behind them is a rocker switch that skips tracks forward or backwards on the entertainment, which, if you've got music playing but the sat-nav screen showing, is very handy. Ah, yes, the nav screen, and accompanying infotainment. It's one of motordom's more archaic systems. Its routing can be questionable and so can its estimated arrival times. But, as with all systems, you get used to its foibles. And, to be fair, Aston knows it has them, which is why the DB11 has a Mercedes source system. A thoroughly modern Aston gets a Mercedes column stalk, too, but this one has Ford Premier Automotive Group hangovers. I'm not sure they've been impressive at any time, really. You touch them all the time. Back in the day, even TVR did its own stalks. The analog speedo is useless, and the digital speedo has a resolution of a Casio watch. Otherwise, switchgear is very good, the glassy buttons on the dashboard, I mean. The key is still as daft as it ever was. If you don't start the car with it the moment you insert it, you have to take it out and reinsert it, but at least it has a slot to live in, I suppose. There's something to be said for that. And I reckon that's about it. Dynamically, it's terrific. The powertrain is wonderful. It's comfortable, rewarding, engaging, electrifying, beautiful, noisy, likable, and usable. And the foibles, in that context, matter to what extent? Absolutely none whatsoever. Mileage 6,351. Back to the top life with a Vanquish S. Month for Vanquish S, the perfect festival car. The 2nd of August 2017. Would have thought that an Aston Martin Vanquish S was the perfect music festival car. I certainly didn't, but I did have to bring some stuff back from one. In that boot, pictured, is a 6-man tent and 2 folding chairs, with space left over. On the Vanquish's back seats is a big rucksack, a sleeping bag and a couple of pillows. I guess a set of golf clubs is a more typical Vanquish accoutrement. Aston reckons the 358-litre boot will take 2 sets. I haven't tried that, but I do believe it. And it's basically a fine example of why your Grand Tourer ought to have the engine in the front. Sure, there are loads of sound dynamic reasons that you might put it in the middle or the back, but then you've got that whole catalyst and exhaust and heat thing going on at the rear, and suspension, forward visibility and cooling to work around if you have a front luggage space. Give me a GT with the engine in the front any day. I'm still not sure anybody does it better than this one. Mileage 5,920. Back to the top life with a Vanquish S. Month 3 glamorous school run. The 12th of July 2017. Break out the tiny violin. An absence of other cars to drive has forced me to use the Aston Martin Vanquish S as daily transport. This is, to be fair, only slightly unusual. I know of owners of Super GT cars who use their Ferrari FFs or GTC4 Lucis more than anything else on their fleet. Such is the appeal of beautiful four-seaters. And although, at 600 bhp, the Vanquish is short on power compared with some other Super GTs and short on rear seat space compared with a GTC4 Lusso or Rolls-Royce Wraith, its ability to be both special and fast is undimmed. The engine is terrific, the ride good. The Vanquish S has used no oil, nothing has fallen off and, apart from one turn, it off and back on again moment, the infotainment has mated with my phone every time. There's a slight squeak from the interior somewhere, and an occasional one from a wheel. But they're both quiet, and the Bang & Olufsen stereo sounds as good as any modern car's. When you get out, it feels special too. The swan doors open with a slight uplift and stay wherever you leave them, the boot lid and bonnet both lift with surprising lightness, and I'm convinced there is no better looking car on sale. If you're being picky, there's less room in the back than a GTC4 Lusso and it's not as powerful as the 680 bhp Ferrari. Anyway, the next Vanquish, due 2019-ish, will have at least another 100 bhp. So that's nice. In the meantime, I'm happy here. Mileage 5,720 back to the top life with a Vanquish S month 2 pure Aston Martin practicality the 21st of June 2017 with a handbrake by your right thigh and the gear selector buttons high on the dash center. The Vanquish has an unexpected amount of space for things on the transmission tunnel. There's only the one conventional sized cup holder and, due to the prop shaft, no cubby as deep, but there's room for cups, music players, phones, wallets, or groceries. Mileage 5,342 back to the top life with a Vanquish S month 1. Can you use a Vanquish S as a daily driver? The 31st of May 2017. What's it like, then, living daily life with an Aston Martin Vanquish S? Well, it's chuffing brilliant, obviously. But it's also, perhaps surprisingly, remarkably easy. I mean, easy given that this is a 592 bhp car with a 5,935cc V12 engine, that it's long and low, and that Aston put quite a bit more super into this Super GT when it revised the model late 2016. But it also rides well, steers easily, has a strong driving position and easy-natured controls. For doing 230 miles to Anglesey at dawn, as the Vanquish S did on its first big outing after arriving with us, there are, honestly, few better cars for the job. I might be gone a while. pic.twitter.com Gibbon8B7B, Matt Pryor at Matty_Pryor July 28, 2017. Granted, it growls loudly on startup, but I suspect most Vanquish S owners don't live too close to their neighbors. From then on it pleases in just the right amounts, massively long-geared and refined if you want it to be evocative. If you don't, I've taken to leaving the dampers alone but pushing the S button for the powertrain, which makes the exhaust louder, more often. It sounds at its best through 30,004,000 revolutions per minute, even on part throttle, so it's enjoyable even at moderate speeds. From there, when lifting off you get gloriously old-fashioned gurgles on the overrun. Talking of old-fashioned, it has a normal oil dipstick and, being a wet-sumped engine, an old-fashioned way of checking the oil. No fancy electronic procedures, just look at the stick when the engine is cold, and admire the lightweight composite bonnet while you're there. If you want to use a £200,000 Super GT as a daily driver, then, this one would fit into your life as simply as some executive saloons. Although, after a long day at Anglesey, there aren't many saloons that would persuade you to take the scenic route home, as the Aston did. It's a special car. Trouble is, because the miles are racking up too quickly, I should reserve it for special drives. Mileage 4,263 welcoming the Vanquish S to our fleet the 10th of May 2017. Cheerio, then, because this is it, the last of the old-school Aston Martins. It has been quite the journey since the lineage of vertical-horizontal architectured cars began with the DB9 in 2004, when the Aston world was Ford Premier Automotive Groups and contained the prospect of a new dawn. Since then has come the new Aston Martin Vantage, Independence, charismatic gaffer Ulrich Bez who, I'm told, used to ride a Segway around the office and would NT race a car during darkness, and racing. Lots and lots of racing. Meantime, the VH architecture has been creeping onwards. Shorn of a deep-pocketed global conglomerate backing it, although, if managed properly, I can't help thinking Ford's Premier Automotive Group portfolio could be doing it wonders today. Aston has been progressing onwards since, like the owners of a stately home. VH has been modified and updated, and called an architecture or a philosophy, rather than a platform, although modifications and new models have been like the upkeep of a historic castle. Which is what new boss Andy Palmer is intent on changing. The DB9 has gone, then, replaced by the DB11. A new Vantage is due within a year. This here Vanquish, though, must go on until 2019, and it's quite conceivable that the DB had overshadowed it somewhat, which is why it has recently been given a raft of improvements and dubbed the Vanquish S the last of the line. Old school. Power from the naturally aspirated 5.9-litre V12 has gone up to 592 bhp. Small but significant changes to the powertrain now grace the underneath, and some subtle trim and finish enhancements have been made inside and outside, which I'll come to in a minute. And, well, look, I don't want to appear like some kind of Luddite, because I'm a massive fan of the DB and I've been writing and saying for years that Astons have been a bit alike, and it's no secret that they could do with a refresh, but by heck the Vanquish is good. The big, long Aston has been a long line of great-looking cars, and this one's no exception. I try not to dwell on aesthetics because beauty is in the eye and that, but if this isn't the best-looking car on sale, I don't know what is. Better still, I've got it for 6,000 miles or so. That I covered 1,900 miles in the first week and a half, then threatened to make this the shortest long-term test in history. But just look at it. Imagine seeing it sitting there and not driving it. I've had to, which is not a bad way to discover that motorcycle parking right next to the terminal is free at Heathrow. Anyway, Aston Design Chief, or Executive Vice President and Chief Creative Officer, officially, Marek Reichman has ensured the Vanquish looks terrific even standing still, thanks to subtle additions to enhance both the look and, as Reichman explains, the aerodynamics. The diffuser is large on the back and there are winglets at the front. It's finished in Ming Blue Q paint, named after the Vase, not the merciless supervillain, and Reichman and team have, over the years, developed a theme of colors that come with contrast highlights, the green with lime combination of Aston's race cars, for example. With Ming Blue, Club Sport White is your contrast option. It can look chromed in some lighting conditions, but is pretty good either way. Inside, you can have what you like, but there are recommendations, and one of them is the white leather with blue contrast. It's a bit light for somebody as grubby as me, and the optional 177 steering wheel a bit square, but, still, it's a lovely place to spend time, and even though the infotainment system is a bit old hat by most standards, it does get Apple CarPlay, which is enough for my daily needs. Long week, late, weather crap, and cats waiting for dinner at home. But still, sometimes you've got to go the long way. This thing's ace. pic.twitter.cuch9tgmzv8az, Matt Pryor at Matty_Pryor July 21, 2017. What's it like to drive? Then Shamazza balls. Lovely. Brilliant. Peachy. Unlike the DB11 there's no soft start option, so you get full exhaust blare on start up, which, as part of the changes to make the Vanquish S feel a bit more Super GT than just GT, means the engine has genuine growl all the time, more so if you push the S button on the steering wheel. There are sensible things. The gearbox is an 8-speed auto, but a pull on either flappy paddle puts it in manual, and an extended pull on the right paddle places it back in auto mode. Ideal. The engine has the creamy smoothness of all engines that have multiples of inline sixes. I used to be able to work out the moments of inertia that makes them perfectly balanced, but with the exhaust turned up a bit, there's also a totally dreamy woofle on the overrun. The ride is composed, firm enough, compliant enough, ideal for a Super GT, really, still usable every day. You can firm up the dampers, but there's no real need to on the road, not in the UK, any rate. The steering, hydraulically assisted, is weighted and geared perfectly and gives just the right amount of road feel. The Vanquish is at once entirely relaxing and yet thoroughly engaging to drive, at sensible, non-licensed or threatening speeds. By turning up the Bang & Olufsen sound, sticking the exhaust on loud and taking control of the gearshifts via the paddles, I've already had some of the best drives of recent years in this car. I just need to be careful not to have too many more, too quickly. But this car is sensational. Aston Martin Vanquish S specification specs price new £199,950 price as tested £222,260 options diamond turned wheels £4,995 Ming Blue Q paint £3,995 exterior graphics £2,995 exposed carbon fiber roof £2,245 chopped carbon fiber satin fascia finish £1,915 pounds, contemporary leather £1,195, carbon fiber side strakes £995, carbon fiber mirror caps £995, black exterior mesh £995, £177 steering wheel £995, black front grille £495, test data engine 5935 cc, V12, petrol power 595 bhp at 7000 revolutions per minute, torque 465 pounds-ft, top speed 201 miles per hour, 062 mph, 3.5 sec, claimed fuel economy 21.6 mpg, test fuel economy 24.1 mpg, code 2302 gkm, faults none, expenses none, back to the top.